So, any questions from the first half? Ooh, and someone said, remind me what the app that is free and available on any smart device is called Reignite, R-E-I, something, something, something. R-E-I-G-N-I-T-E, Reignite Your Marriage. It's totally free. It's not a scheme or a scam. Yes. Huh? Oh, is that the Frenchie? Sorry, I don't understand your language. Is it on the App Store? Yes, sir. Every single App Store. Every single App Store. Remember earlier when I said it's available on any device? I'll say it slower for the French. Oh. So now, because remember on the home screen, I should look. On the home screen of the app, you can submit questions during live events that come directly to me. It's totally anonymous. And so it's really cool. So I don't know, has anyone submitted? Well, don't raise your hand. That'd be awesome. I did. So if your wife's a total jerk, let me see here. None. Oh, wait, what's today? Nope. None today. Fine. Oh, good Lord, there's a lot of them. Reignite Your Marriage. And then when you launch the app, scroll down, there's live event Q&A. So, ooh, that's a good one. All right. So, I promised you after the break, and I'll get to those questions here at the end. So, we've already learned that what happens is that you want to argue about the chores, the in-laws, the finances, the kids, but you're not actually arguing about facts. That's not the problem. A couple came up to me, they gave an example of an argument over an Apple Watch, and they're like, is that a good reason to even argue? Obviously, if you just want to talk about an Apple Watch, no, that's not a worthy argument. Neither are the chores. Neither is showing up late. Neither is half or 90% of the things that we spend time arguing about. The facts or the circumstances in and of themselves aren't a big deal. Period. However, when you react negatively, what is happening? A button is getting pressed. So it is not about the fact that my wife is yelling at me. That's not the problem. The problem is I'm feeling controlled, I'm feeling judged, I'm feeling criticized. Would you be curious? The most common buttons, and we surveyed tens of thousands of people on this. So buttons are really just feeling words. That's all they are. And so we started with a list of probably 300 to 400 different feeling words. And we asked people to rank, the words and if they've ever felt these or which ones are meaningful, I think from like 1 to whatever. And we ended up with a pretty good list of about 70 or 80 common feelings or buttons that get pushed for people. All right? The most common for females is feeling disconnected or rejected. That tends to be the biggest button, and I see a lot of ladies' heads going, mm-hmm. So, ladies, most often, and not every time, there's 70 other words. Frankly, it's a feeling word, so there's 1,000 other feeling words that you could use. But many times, if you're upset, you very well may be feeling disconnected or rejected, or both. Gentlemen, the vast majority of time, your number 1 and 2 buttons getting pushed are, number 1, by far, is feeling like a failure. Does that feel familiar? Or feeling controlled. Those are 2 of the biggest buttons for men. So think of how this plays out. Let's say you have a traditional home where the husband works and the wife stays at home with the kids, but let's say the husband works too much. Are you talking about sex again? Get a room, people. Controlled. Okay, first of all, I've known you for a long time. I guarantee failure and control are huge buttons for you. The reason I'm not even going to get into it. We will talk about tomorrow over breakfast. Because not push-ups. In the jacuzzi together. No, the steam room. Okay, can I just share something off topic? Listen, gentlemen, you're a little too comfortable with your nudity in the men's locker room. Seriously, man. I walk in the locker room, I'm like, ah! I'm on a pornography set. I got to get out. And furthermore, put a towel on when you go into the steamer because you're sweating. And if your naked butt is on the bench next to me, your butt sweat is touching my butt sweat. And that's disgusting. We're not Germans, people. That was very spontaneous. Sometimes I'm very quick-witted and I make myself laugh. I didn't even know that was coming. So, seriously, we're not Germans. Man, I just don't need those images. It's wrong. Want me to describe what I see? I know. I can't forget it. I don't even sleep well here anymore. So let's say you have a traditional home where husband's working, wife's staying at home with the kiddies, and let's say he works a lot, 70, 80 hours a week, right? So he's gone a lot, or maybe he travels a lot. What might the wife be feeling? Disconnected or rejected or unimportant or devalued or dishonored. I mean, it can be, and actually on the app, I have the entire list for free on the app of these button words because you're going to need to start identifying these things. Now, I get it. It's not easy, which is why I love the smart device app. Because even for me, I've been teaching this stuff for 20 years. Sometimes I don't know why I'm mad. I know there's a button being pushed, but I can't identify it. I'll look at that list, and I'll start reading and go, oh, that's it. That's the button. Because I promise you the word flies off the page or off the screen. Okay? And so, if the husband's always working and working too much, the wife is feeling disconnected or unimportant or rejected, how might many of wives react to that? By escalating, right? The majority of escalators are female. Now, ladies, if you're an avoider, it's not a problem. Yeah. And so, she's feeling disconnected or ignored or unimportant. She might choose to react by escalating, which we know leads to what? Divorce. And what might she say when she's escalating? You stink. You aren't a very good father. You're never around. You haven't met my need. You complaining and criticizing. I wonder what button that might push in a man. Failure. I stink at being a husband. Now, what's crazy is you're not necessarily thinking of this stuff consciously, right? You're not necessarily. Now, hopefully, like I do, because I teach this so much, my hope for you is that you will start applying this to your life, and you will start wondering, well, what button is being pushed? But I'm telling you, you're feeling like a failure. Now, most men tend to be avoiders. So how might he react to feeling like a failure? Avoiding home. Now I work even more. Now I go out. Now I'm on hunting trips. Now I'm staying away because I feel like a failure at home, but I feel successful. Where do I feel successful? At work. So what do I want more of? Work. Uh-oh. Now I'm avoiding. And what does that go right back into? My wife's original button. So if she felt rejected and unimportant before, now it's intensified. And where we get it wrong is if at first I don't succeed, I'm going to keep doing the exact same thing, just with more intensity. Now I'm threatening divorce, right? Now I'm just getting nasty. Now I'm looking for other women and other relationships because this one's a failure. And oh, hey, this one makes me feel successful. Uh-oh. Do you see how that works? All right. And so, your job from tonight on, how many of y'all can tell when you're getting upset? Right? Really? You're not raising your hands? Everybody can tell when you're getting upset, right? This isn't rocket science. You know I'm really getting upset right now. Until maybe now, you didn't understand why. This is the why. It is the deepest level you can go to is sharing what button is getting pushed. It is the reason. If my wife is late all the time, which is not healthy to say, all the time, but she struggles with being on time. Okay? And so if we're supposed to meet for lunch, like for fun, right? No big deal. It's like, hey, you don't have anything, I don't have anything. Why don't we meet somewhere? And let's have like a fun lunch, just the two of us. Yeah, I'd love to. I show up, of course, 10 to 15 minutes early, because earliness is next to godliness. Like, for me, there is no on time. You're either early or late. Can I have an amen? But my wife, it's a suggestion. It's an ideal. Whether it happens or not is irrelevant. Doesn't matter. So I get there early, and then she arrives 10, 15 minutes late. Am I feeling upset? Most of you, though, here's where the problem sets in. When your wife finally shows up, what do you talk about? Why are you always late? Why can't you just show up on time? Blah, 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 blah. And you go on and round over the facts. But I'm telling you, it's not about showing up late. It's when she shows up late, how do I feel? What I need to start talking about is, hey, listen, first, actually, because this has happened, my first response now, if she shows up late, is to inquire lovingly with a question. Because could she be late legitimately? 100%. And it's totally happened throughout the course of 23 years. Flat tire, wreck, whatever. Totally out of her control, which again is why you leave super early, so you can count that in. But that's beside. I have a sickness. I will admit that. And so I've learned over the years to start with a question. I don't want to assume that she's trying to reject me. And in fact, do any of you wake up in the morning and think, oh, man, what are some really creative ways I could show my spouse and make her or him feel rejected or like a failure? That would be fun. No, we're just naturally gifted at doing these things. We don't intentionally do it. And so I've learned to start asking questions to make sure, because I don't want to start, diving in on a critical nature when it was unavoidable. And so I will ask them like, hey, is everything okay? Or did I have the right time? And there's been times where she's like, man, I'm sorry, I totally lost track of time. And I have to suck it up. There's other times where very legitimate reasons why she couldn't get there when we had talked about it, or she misunderstood, or whatever, and the thing's over. But you don't talk about being late. What you talk about is, for me, like sitting here, I've been here like 30 minutes, I feel really unimportant, or I'm feeling rejected, or I'm feeling disrespected, I'm feeling controlled. Greg loves these words. Yes, that is not what I teach. That is not validating. Get over it. I see why we're going to spend the last week together. Makes sense now. It's what she tells me. That was nice. I did not see that coming. You liar. We all know where liars go. Sorry to be the one to tell you. But I'll tell you the truth, okay? Many times when I get to this place, I do feel like, and in particular men, will start to tune out. Like, this is stupid. I don't want to talk about feelings. It's not about that. It's about just show up on time and then I won't be upset. I've already asked you, man, what happens when you talk about the facts with each other? You know what happens. It gets ugly. And I guess all I'm saying is that the kind of relationship that you desire? I mean, it's not. So I'm going to suggest that all of you start, when you get upset, start asking yourself, why? That's all I do with a couple. By the way, I'll deal with couples that are dealing with the hurt and effects of an affair. It's kind of the big one, right? It's not about the affair. That's not the problem. It's still about the button. That's usually the hardest job in working with a couple who's dealing with the effects of an affair, is to get that victim of the affair off of the affair and onto the button. Because it's not about the affair. It's about feeling worthless, devalued, rejected, betrayed. And here's why. Facts are arguable. Facts are debatable. Right? You were in law school at some point. You could give Greg and I, give me any fact you want. He could take one side, I can take the other. We can both passionately argue totally opposite of the exact same facts. Take receipts, right? I told you my wife and I almost killed each other over receipts. For 6 months, that was literally going to lead us to divorce. Receipts? Does that feel divorce worthy? No, it's receipts. But it's not receipts. Because what was she feeling? Ignored. What was I feeling? Controlled, many times criticized or condemned. And so what happens is, if my wife says, like one time, straight up, I had just returned from Africa, probably Uganda, working with orphans. I come home, she blows up over the ATM receipt thing. So I'm like a week off of the mission field, and she is railing me on how important receipts are in life. What do you think my comeback was? I said this. There are children dying on the streets, and you're really going to give me this much grief over freaking receipts? Now, what is she going to say? We could end up in jail. The IRS is going to come after us. Right? You will argue facts until you are blue in the face and divorced. Now, when we start learning this, what you're hearing tonight, after 6 months, I come home from this amazing training. I give her the guy's book called Fighting for Your Marriage. I went, first thing out of my mouth was, I need to apologize, because I learned this weekend that I'm a major avoider. She just starts sobbing. Because for the first time in 6 months, she could put her finger on what was so hurtful. My avoidance. Up until then, it was all her. Now I'm a part of it. So I owned that, and I apologized for that. And I said, would you mind reading this? Because I really think they can help us. She's like, I'll do anything. And so when we sat down to have a conversation about buttons or feelings, rather than facts, we were finally able to start get to get to a place where we could resolve the conflict. Because we weren't going round and round over the facts. I had learned to hate receipts. Receipts for me were of the devil because it meant hurt and pain and screamed at and all that kind of stuff. And then after 6 months, we stuck to the system. We sat down on our couch, and for the first time ever, instead of yelling at me about the importance of the receipts, my wife said, you know, I think probably the biggest thing is I've just really felt ignored over this issue because it's really important to me. Now, what am I going to take? I'm going to pick any couple. I'll pick the French guy. So if this is your wife? Well, you're French. I don't know. I hope you're taking this as fun, loving sarcasm. Good. Not that I'm ever afraid of French people. So if she said to you, just give me your honest feedback. If your wife said to you, you know what, honestly, I think I got upset because I really felt rejected yesterday. What goes through your head if you heard her say that? There you go. Did you hear that? He said, well, at first I felt this small. Does this guy, stand up for everybody. Does this man look like the face of evil? That's a big smile, right? Do you really believe that you married evil? I mean, really? Because evil people will kill you. Seriously, you need to get out of that relationship. He's not evil. Clearly, she's not evil that I'm aware of. Do you know anything? And so that's why if he hears his wife say, I guess I felt rejected. My wife said, I'm feeling ignored. Your heart pours out for the other person. Because that would be the last thing that he wants to do. Doesn't mean he didn't say or do something that let her feel rejected. But I guarantee you, whenever he said it or did it, that wasn't his intention. He's either being unhealthy, immature, or even, my gosh, we used to kill. Well, and if you heard him say, honestly, I think I overreacted last night or this morning because I really felt controlled. What goes through your head? Perfect. She said, I feel guilty because that's not my intention. Gentlemen, I know you have convinced yourselves that your wife wakes up every day with an itemized list of ways to control you on purpose. Ladies, is that the truth? Ah, yes. I heard one yes. That is terrifying. Yes, because he's an idiot. But I promise you, and gentlemen, do you wake up dreaming of ways to reject your wife? Is that your goal? No. But we say and do things through the course of life that push people's buttons. It doesn't mean I intended to, but it happens. Until you start talking about these buttons, I swear to you, you'll never get solutions. Ever. Because you will keep going round and round in that miserable dance, and it will spiral out of control until it ends in the dissolution of your relationship, or at least, the very least, a miserable one, an unsatisfying one. And so this is important stuff because you have to get off the facts and onto the feelings. Once you do, you become naturally teammates. And isn't that the goal? So I promised you after the break, the other two of the 4 negative reactions. So if we escalate, that leads to divorce. If we avoid, that leads to divorce. If we dishonor is when you get into name calling and belittling. I hate you, you're an idiot, you're just like your mother. Right? that obviously is a terrible way to react, and it leads to divorce. And then the fourth one is when we negative believe. We react by negative believing. And a negative belief is pretty simple. She or he meant to do this. They did this on purpose. It is a belief about your spouse that in its nature is negative. You don't love me. He can't possibly, going back to the overworking thing, he can't possibly love me because he works so much. It's a negative belief. Now, it could be true, but I'm telling you in my professional life, 9 times out of 10, those negative beliefs are totally inaccurate. But here's how they get you in trouble. If my wife, if she asks me, like, let's say I'm coming home from working or doing an intensive or something, she's like, hey, on your way home, please pick up milk. She might ask me at lunch. Well, I can guarantee you, because of my ADD nature, there ain't no way I'm going to remember getting milk. Virtually within seconds of hanging up the phone, I don't even know I have a wife. I've totally forgotten. So on my way home, I hit our neighborhood, and what do I suddenly remember? The freaking milk. Now, I do have a very neurotic problem of I have an inability to backtrack. So if I have already passed the grocery store, and it is now behind me, we're not having milk. So as I pull into there, I'm like, I forgot the milk. Well, too late now. So as I'm pulling out, what might be my next, now I've already told you my wife's an escalator. So let's just say over 23 years, has she ever gotten mad at me for forgetting something? Yeah. So what might my negative belief be? She's going to flip, right? That's the negative belief. I'm in my car. She's at the house. Has anything happened yet? No. But what's going on up here? She's going to flip out. Then what's my next thought? I'm so sick of her always what? Flipping out. Oh my gosh, why does she have to behave this way? It was just milk. I have literally convicted my wife in the court in my head. Nothing has happened yet, and when I pull up to the house, how's my attitude? Defensive and really negative. So when I walk in the door, she could do anything. She could literally be there topless. Sorry, it was just a vision I had. I know. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's awkward. I'm just saying, guys, if you really want, or ladies, if you really want a fulfilling, happy relationship, you should be topless more. For your husbands only, though. I am not saying that. Unless you're open to it, I guess. Your husband would be, they'll come back to every event I ever do. And so it doesn't matter what she's doing. I could walk in the door and she's like, hey, what am I going to do? You know what? Just stop. She's going to be like, what are you talking about? I forgot. All right, let it go. And she's like, what? Well, now she's an escalator. What do you think she's going to do? Yeah, I'll say this. My wife never de-escalates. It only goes one way for her. But do you see how negative beliefs can damage? And if you want the truth, it's the worst of the four. Because what negative beliefs ultimately lead to is apathy. What does it matter? She doesn't love me. He doesn't love me. I don't even care. Apathy is the opposite of love. Oddly enough, if you say you hate something many times, it means you love something very much. It's just not going well. Apathy is the opposite of love. Apathy is death. That is a really difficult place to come back from. It's hard to resurrect from apathy, which is why Christ compels us to have patience and this sort of basic no quit attitude because you can't quit. And that's what apathy does, is you quit. You lose all hope and you are out. That's where negative beliefs ultimately lead you. And they really do negatively impact you. And so when you start getting on to the feelings and off of the facts, you've now given yourselves an opportunity to resolve it. So how do we break this dance? Let's put the dance back up there for me. So how do we break this dance? I'll give you a multiple choice test. Do you A, eliminate your buttons from being pushed? Do you B, change your reaction? Who votes A? Oh, smart crowd. Who votes B? Do we have any control over our buttons being pushed? None, because other people are pushing them, right? Now, I will tell you, the more you get better at identifying the buttons being pushed, they'll hold less power over you, won't necessarily be so traumatic, but I can't control my new French friend. Do you have a name? Is it Frenchish? Is it really? That's awesome. Christophe. Like, I don't know. So, Christophe could come up to me after the event and say something very cruel. Frankly, I probably pushed several of his own buttons tonight by constantly picking on him. So I can't control that. He comes up to me at the end and goes, dude, honestly, like that was the dumbest presentation I've ever seen. I go, whoa. Are you talking in Afrikaans? Because it sounds like it to me. Maybe we won't meet at gym tomorrow. Feels like a safer decision on my part. So I can't control whether my buttons get pushed because it's you. You can do whatever and misbehave or whatnot. But what do I have control over? How I react. And I'm telling you, avoiders, just trust me on this one. You don't have to avoid. Even if your spouse is escalating, you don't have to shut down. You have a choice. You can react in healthier ways. You can change your reactions. You could react in forgiveness. You can react by taking personal responsibility. You can react by validating the other person. You can react by being a servant. You can react by laying down your life. All the fruits of the Spirit, that's a good start. Very good start on reactions. Okay? But tomorrow, what we're going to go over is by far, what I think, is the most, like the biggest, quickest way to make a change in your relationship like this week is by learning how to take a timeout. That is by far the greatest reaction. Because here's the truth. When your button gets pushed, do you really think that's the time to have a conversation? Heck to the no. It's not. And so that's the first skill that we teach couples in our intensive program. And if you're unaware of the intensive program, Mr. Robert has been trained in that. And traditional marital therapy is about 30% successful. So about 30% of the time, couples in marriage therapy stay together. 70% of the time they divorce. So when we stumbled upon that research 15, 20 years ago, we started saying there's got to be a better way to do this. And that's when we discovered and invented this intensive format and this very different way to help couples. And we did an 8-year longitudinal study on every couple, hundreds of couples that came through our intensive program. We tested them before the intensive, immediately after the intensive, and then once a year, or may have been every 6 months, for 8 years. And 8 years later, 87% of the couples were still together. That's like a major difference. So I share that because what I am teaching you last week and this week, this stuff literally works. Now, you might not like the idea of having to figure out what your button is. You might hear the phrase, you got to learn how to call a timeout, and go, that's so goofy. I don't know how to help you. This stuff is clinically proven to work. It's proven. Your responsibility is going to be able to apply it to your relationship. Fair? All right. Well, we are at 8:30, so I want to honor our time. So tomorrow we're going to talk about timeouts, and you can even submit questions tonight. So I want to spend like 30, 45 minutes tomorrow just answering your specific questions. Does that sound good? All right. Well, I will pray for us. Or do you want to pray? Do you want to say? Okay. Well, Lord, thank you so much for all the couples willing to show up tonight. God, I pray and ask in the name of Jesus that you bless their marriage, that you bless their willingness to come and learn, that you bless their attitude, and that you remind them right now or tonight or tomorrow when they really need it, that you do love them and you are there and you will protect them and their relationship. Help them go in peace and help their marriage really be the beacon that attracts the lost in Edenville. And I ask all this in Jesus' name, amen.